the auctioning of excess furniture and equipment.
Yes, sir. The senior high gym teachers as well as a fitness technician are looking at a way to maybe reuse some of this space in the current fitness center. Some of the equipment is starting to kind of break down and maybe needs replaced. And they're, based on the current usage of it, they're looking, and again, that they would have liked to be here tonight, but both of them had other personal matters they have to take care of, so they are going to come to a future meeting. But they would like to propose possibly auctioning off, getting rid, properly disposing of some of that fitness equipment and reusing that space for other fitness type activities, kind of some of the newer ideas for people. So they'll be at future, like I said, they'll be at a future meeting to discuss their thoughts and their plan with what they would like to do. So,
Okay. Any questions on that? We can wait till they come.
Yes, I do have some questions. IUP is using a website and doing web auctions. And we're going to have some substantial furniture from the Eisenhower that also could be liquidated that we aren't going to reuse. So both of those things could happen. And if they use that website, it's a national auction then. IUP does it about once every 3 months and they put stuff on it. So I would recommend they take a look at that, but also take a look at Cheney's problem. There isn't any reason to keep equipment in Eisenhower and move it, store it, and then get rid of it.
I've actually, in response to that, sir, I've actually already started looking into that. We would have had more time on our agenda tonight. It was one of the topics I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, well, and we can do this next month, but let's take a broader view than getting rid of 12 pieces of fitness equipment. We have a bunch of excess equipment. Let's get it going.
Yep. Cheney and the principals and I have already started having those conversations about the stuff at Eisenhower, the stuff the senior high has some stuff, even stuff at Horace Mann in preparation, just maybe looking at prior to the combining of those two schools of what we can get rid of, hopefully maybe this summer. So to your point, that we're not storing it.
Yeah, and maybe stuff that's in the crawl space of Ben Franklin, you can get rid of that stuff too. There isn't any reason to keep equipment that we're not going to use. If somebody else has use for it and give us $2 for it, then let's get it going.
Yeah, what really brought it to light was we've had these storage units at all the schools since COVID, and there's still stuff in it. So my question to the principals was, do you need it or you don't? If you don't need it, we need to figure out how to get rid of it. And that's kind of what brought it to light a couple of weeks ago. We've been having some conversations about having some online auctions. So this item actually kind of fits at the same time. So,
Okay. Anything else? Moving on to number 5, the Ben Franklin outdoor classroom paving bids.
Part of the outdoor classroom expansion over at Ben Franklin is some paving over there. I know that Sean Moran, Kelly Urbani, the principal over there, they have been working on getting some quotes for some paving work over there. Because as of right now, based on some of the quotes, the work is looking to be under the $21,000 threshold, which requires a bid. We can award that work based on just getting quotes instead of actually having to formally bid it out at this point. So what we would like to do, and I know I'm not sure if Sean is on the meeting here. He has really been the one who has been working more with it than myself. I don't know if Cheney, have you been involved in that at all? So what we'd like to do in order to continue that work is to bring that back to the full board, the quote for approval to have that work done.
Yeah, there were three quotes.
There's 3 quotes, yes.
And the lowest one was under $20,000 by a local company. So
Yes.
I would certainly like to see that move ahead as quickly as we can.
Is it paving or is it cement work?
It's paving. It's by 2 minutes paving.
Okay.
And did anybody suggest to them what the thickness is and what type of material they should buy and stuff like that? I mean, are we involved in any of that? Or
We're just involved in accepting the bids and authorizing the payments. So no, there hasn't been any specs I'm sorry. In the bid, there is some description of what they're doing, but it's sidewalks is what they're building.
right.
So
But it's only, that lowest bid had a 2-inch wearing course, I think, over 4 inches of subbase. And someone feels that that's adequate and that's good, and, you know, we're not gonna be running cars and trucks over that.
No, kids,
Yeah.
and they're pretty destructive, but not heavy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, and if that's what Sean recommends there or can afford there, you know, we don't have much choice, I'm afraid.
But what we don't
Yeah, we
want is to
do.
come back in 5 or 10 years and it's all
Yeah, we don't wanna-
dilapidated.
Well,
and
take a look at the thing and see if it meets your approval.
what- I'm not sure it does.
I
Okay.
I'd have
can't
to look
imagine
at
that
it
2
closer.
inches of paving's enough. Yeah, I have a bit about the parking lot out here.
Yeah.
I
and-
want thick.
Yeah, and that's wet in there too, right? That's a little bit.
It can be.
Yeah,
We're gonna
So-
get lots of free.
so we'll
spots
look
stuff.
at it and then prior to the motion,
No, put it on the agenda, we can pull it, but let's put it
Yeah.
on the agenda.
Right.
You know, one of my concerns is if we did it too much, the price goes up 10% every week.
well, the other 2 bids were different thicknesses, if I recollect. You know, I didn't look at it real close because I didn't think we had much in it, you know. We're definitely not funding it, so, right?
It's coming from a donation
Yeah.
paying for it, but the donation was to the district, so the school board.
Right. And maybe that supplier or that contractor says this is adequate, you know.
Well, I don't think.
We
he'd-
weren't involved in any of that.
I don't
so-
think he'd make I don't think he'd make the proposal unless he thought it was adequate.
Right. But did he make the proposal or is that what was asked for? There's some unknown answers here.
Yeah, and like I said, Sean has really been working. I've not even been that involved in it either.
Yeah.
He needs to come and
So next meeting, I guess we'll have it on the agenda. Hopefully Sean will be present there and talk a little bit about this. All right. Walter, we're not done with the meeting.
I was gonna say, are we down to 5 already? You guys, I know Julia said she wanted you guys in and out of here and I'm thinking, geez, didn't think I was that late.
We do have a snowstorm coming, sir.
We're done with 4 and 5.
Okay,
Do we want to wait for Julia before we go to number 1 or we could go?
she did tell me before she left from our meeting this afternoon that she was gonna be running late, so
So
she wasn't sure when she would be getting
So
here.
do we want to go to number 2? That's
Yeah.
my suggestion. Okay, East Pike renovation project, talk about it, hiring a construction manager discussion. And what we're looking at from what you and I talked about a little bit, Jared, was like a third party person like we've hired before. We used Cheney and Greg the last time for the smaller project, but I agree that maybe this is too much for them or not time-wise and that sort of thing, not that they're not competent.
Yeah, I think and this, I don't know, it doesn't tie directly into, 1, but it kind of does 1E, where if you were to look at hiring an outside construction manager, if both projects could be happening at the same time, do you want somebody who is overseeing both projects, or is the Pike project small enough where you take it out and have maybe Mr. Woodring do that one, if that's where the direction the committee wants to go. I just know from past experience, it seems that bringing a construction manager on during the process itself has been helpful.
Yeah, and then that way they can sort of do constructability reviews on their design ahead of time. So in case they see something, catch something that can be caught prior to going out to bid. And then-
Oh, there's different people that you're talking about here. There's an owner of observation, which Mr. Cheney could do
Right,
with a little bit of help. And construction manager actually is a person that takes control of the project. And he'll drive you and the architect crazy, making value engineering things as we go through. And she takes over the project. So you need to be clear on what you're asking for. The construction manager is a distinct legal person, company that he ends up working for and the contractors end up working for. And we lose control of the project.
yeah. And I don't think that's what we were intending.
Do you have a spec or an RFI, a sample proposal for the responsibilities that you would be asking for with the construction manager?
We have one that we used for the proposed Ben Franklin project. We did an RFP back then.
Okay. How did that, were you part of that process? How did that go?
No, that process didn't come to fruition.
Okay,
Okay, there was a construction manager on the gymnasium, and I was the architect on it, and I thought it was unfortunate. The construction manager, I don't think protected the district.
We had a construction manager through the Ben Franklin project.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's tough to tell how that project came out. Okay.
But we didn't do it.
But that also, that's, what, a couple, 3-4% of the project. So, I mean, we're talking about a construction manager, a real construction manager being in charge of the project, certifying, reviewing all the subcontractors, making sure the architect did all his stuff right. He basically takes all his liability and ships it to everybody else, and then brings the project in on budget, which is why you would hire it, and that's why you pay that much money. What Cheney and Greg did for East Pike was observation. Okay, and they came out and made sure that the walls were straight and things were going according to plan, right?
Yes, sir.
You,
When they called for 5/8 rebar in the foundation, they didn't put 1/4-inch rebar in.
right. Right, yeah, and it just, and that was a heck of a lot cheaper than a construction manager. Now, do you get the benefit of the construction manager? They'd argue that you do. You can weigh in anytime now.
I would echo a lot of what Tom said. We've worked with a number of construction managers on projects before. Most of them had followed something like what Tom said, where it wasn't necessarily a benefit as much as it hurt the project maybe, and there were more conflicting voices. But we have seen situations where it has helped. I would say generally what I'm seeing, and I can't totally speak for Cheney's time or anyone else who would be involved sort of in the shoes of the construction manager, but that the East Pike project, as we understand it, doesn't seem like it's large enough or complicated enough where you would see the benefits of a construction manager. Whereas I think that the Eisenhower project is going to be big enough and with a lot of stuff to keep track of that I think it would probably serve the district to have a construction manager on board. You're going to have at least 4 primes there. May add a 5th for asbestos. You may add a 5th for something else, but there's going to be a lot of consecutive construction as well, where I feel like it would just be way too much of a time commitment for someone in the district to manage that. My 2 cents on that.
Well, not to manage it, yes. To observe it, probably not. Okay, and that's a different responsibility. So the nice thing about having Cheney and Greg on this project was that Mike didn't have to go out and see if the rebar was in the foundation or not.
And he's an expert on rebar.
And he's an expert on rebar. Whereas Cheney and Greg knew a little bit about what was going on. So,
Well, here's my 2 cents, I guess, Tom. What I was thinking wasn't a full-blown construction manager. Can we hire a third-party observer?
There's another name for that, a job.
no, an observer is a good way to say it. Okay, because you want to say clerk of the works and.
Or clerk of the works, that's what I was
And-
thinking of.
And that's just a step below. It's still a full-time job on that project.
Yeah.
Observation would be going over once or twice a day and taking a look at it and seeing what's going on. And when something isn't going right, people aren't showing up, you got a muddy mess, you got an unsafe situation, then they could talk. And that's what they did for the Spike.
Yeah.
So,
But I think the concern is Cheney is not going to have time to do
well,
Eisenhower.
and that's why we hired Cheney and Greg on extra time. And Greg's not doing anything.
Well, I was just gonna say, Greg's
Yeah,
retired. Maybe Greg would be willing to do something like that if that's something that you think that he'd have the time and expertise to do. I think we know he would watch out for the district.
You could certainly do a construction manager RFP like you did for Ben Franklin, Jared. And we could take a look at that and then compare it to a less intense observation. So, it's at a construction manager, like you were doing at Ben Franklin, that's a full-time job for an office.
Yeah.
Okay.
But legally, can we minimize the RFI for a construction manager down to a construction observer, inspector, or whatever?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing to do is to talk to Cheney and see what he recommends. He's right here.
Well, I think he and Jared have already spoke, right?
So what's the
That's
story?
why it's on here.
So what's the story, Cheney? On your end?
I will do whatever.
Don't give me the BS.
I love this guy.
What's the story?
I agree that the East Pipe renovation, repurposing of that is small enough that we can deal with that. Obviously, the Eisenhower project is going to be much larger scale. That's not only renovation, but construction. That's going to consume a lot more time.
Say it. You don't have time to do.
I think
Do
we
it
can. I
properly.
think we can do it,
Right.
but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
They're two different, completely different pictures.
Completely different.
It can be done.
Yeah.
But that's going to take. That would take
That would be a full.
a lot of time for Dave and myself both.
Right.
Yeah, but a third
But
party part-time
So-
would be.
but we have a vested interest, which
Right.
I think. You know,
Yeah, I mean, you'll
gives us
still go
value
over
to
and
the
make
project, too.
periodic unannounced site visits, I'm sure.
So Cheney, let me come at it from a different perspective. So if you or Dave or some combination thereof, is there anybody we could hire on a temporary basis to pick up the slack in what you and Dave are currently doing to allow you the time to be focused? Because one of the concerns that I have, particularly on something like this, is you wind up being so busy, you know, you just go from the bed to the job to the bed to the job, and you never get, you'll start to miss stuff maybe on what's happening here just because you're so consumed by the project. And so is there a way to ensure you guys have adequate space and time, and then have somebody else fill in on the work that you need to do here?
I'm honestly not, I would not be worried about being attached enough to that and getting done what we need to get done. It's going to be a load, yes. I did that before I came to this industry when I was working in healthcare. And I was a single supervisor and had multiple facilities. While doing that, we constructed a brand new $21 million healthcare building. And I also ran that project. I spent a lot of time there.
The technology of the healthcare is head and shoulders above what we're at.
Bless you.
It's doable.
I just want to make sure that
That's
we have
really
those
to the
bases
flavor of
covered.
the board.
Well, I trust our staff. And the question is do they have enough time to do the job that needs to be done?
Or
Or do they want
Cheney,
to?
from my
That's-
perspective,
You need to find out.
I walk in the office every day with a list of 10 things to do. At the end of the day, I've done a dozen and maybe only 2 on that list of 10. Okay, so something needs to get pushed to the next day and to the next day and to the next day because of the urgency or the priority is to, the concrete truck sitting there. Okay, and there isn't enough rebar in the foundation. Okay, and the heater just went out up at the high school. Okay, and they're calling you to help that, and he's calling you because there's not enough concrete or not enough rebar in the foundation. Okay, that's what I'm concerned with, because I've seen it happen and I know you're younger than I am, and young guys can take more stress and hassle, but that's the concern that I have, because it'll all come at once. I guarantee you it'll all come at once.
And that's our daily operation.
Okay.
You're always putting out fires. But
But this one could be a raging forest fire.
it will be busy, no doubt.
My question, Cheney, would be, or to everyone, is are you maintaining all of your typical duties as they are today? Or is there someone else who would take over a lot of that? So you would be 100% on this?
We are blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Since Dave came on board and we've got everything aligned, it's going very, very well. Better than I could have hoped at this point. And I'm very comfortable with that. And it's more of a shared responsibility. We keep each other informed of where we're at when we're working on separate things every morning and every evening. And that's our role. So we don't get blindsided with something that the other one's working on that we don't know about. So that's working well, and I'm comfortable with where we're at. And I think we can do it, but it's gonna have to be a shared responsibility. No one man can do that unless it's a full-time. That's it.
What we did the last time, Eli, is before Cheney took over, was he was the assistant, and we had Greg Trout, who was the supervisor. So they both kind of, as a district, we paid them a little extra money to work extra hours, and Greg kind of took more of the lead on the construction side, and Cheney took more of the lead on the supervisor side. We could do something like that for very similar to what we did here. So it is one guy who's more in charge of the construction management or observer.
Yeah, it's not
can't go-
not in charge of construction. It's observing
Right.
and being eyes and ears and also making decisions that have to be made. There's going to be things that have to be done timely that we have to rely on these guys to do.
Well, I'm only gonna support it though, if Cheney can pretty much, he's gonna do that 95% of the time, the Eisenhower observation. And then, we pay Dave extra maybe to take over.
Why don't we let
Cheney.
Cheney make a proposal back to the board about what he thinks it's going to take and just pay attention to it.
But I don't want a person in and out of there. Like one day it's Cheney, the next day it's Dave for the next
Well,
5 days, and then Cheney's back in. He doesn't know what Dave did. That does not work. I've seen it.
Yeah, and I'm okay
Doesn't work.
with the way these two work together.
Right.
I'm okay with that kind of double teaming. It's a big project and having two people watch it.
So one of the other questions that was raised was if you bring the project manager on at this point in the design or some point shortly hereafter, the valued engineering that they sometimes bring to help get a little more bang for your buck out of what you're doing. If we don't,
I'm sorry, you mean construction manager? If you bring a
Yes,
construction
yes,
manager in.
yes.
Thank you. Okay.
yes,
Just wanted to
yes,
make sure.
absolutely, Tom, that's exactly what I was talking about. So my question then is, I think I'm pretty well convinced, Cheney, from what you said, that you can handle the observation. The question then becomes one of, and I'm glad to hear you did a $21 million medical building. Okay.
That was
That one kind of snuck in there, but, so the question then to you is, can you provide those same value engineering concepts along with the architect to help get that extra, that a formal construction manager would bring to the table?
he can't do that. The formal construction manager, we turn over $15 million to him, and he actually does the bidding and writes the contracts and negotiates back and forth. He's actually in charge of the project. He basically supplements the owner.
But there are construction reviewers out there, not a construction manager. And there's like construction schedulers.
I'm just
So-
trying to make sure that we're talking apples and
Well,
apples
you're
here.
not, you're not.
Okay.
Okay, the construction manager actually takes the project over. And he actually bids the thing to subs and he writes the contracts. And that's where his value is. His value is, he says he's gonna build this thing for 14 million. He'll bring it in at 14 million, but it may not have any brick on it when he's done. Okay, but he'll, you know how they work.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not what Cheney would be doing. Cheney would not be writing the contracts. He would not be dealing with subs of subs. Okay,
Who would be doing that then?
So I guess they will be, Buckhart Horn will
well,
be.
they're right, I mean, the way that we're set up right now is that they'll write a set of specs with bidding instructions in it and a set of drawings that are highly detailed. And then the people have to follow those things.
But then we're the ones that hire the general, is that correct, in the four primes?
The general, yeah, well, the general bids his documents. When we sign a contract with a low bid, with a responsible low bidder. And but to be general and at least 3 other contracts. Okay, it's all primes. This is the way we have to build schools in Pennsylvania.
But that's what the board does.
The board will sign the contract. The contract will be between us and contractors.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, and we have scope to manage the bidding process. We'll run the meetings, hold the pre-bid meetings, answer RFI, issue addenda, manage that process, and then the district will ultimately sign those contracts. The contract is written between the school district and the contractors, each of those prime contracts. And then we hold regular job meetings, usually bi-weekly. For this one, it might be weekly. I need to look back at what we have in the contract, but it's not being on site every day, but it is reviewing all the submittals, reviewing the pay applications, going through all the RFIs and change orders, reviewing the special inspections and testings that are done, all of the tests that are performed for concrete and steel. We do review those as well.
Dealing with the problems. When things show up, you're the first.
But where I was
Change the first
going,
call.
Walter,
Right.
was we wouldn't have to hire or do an RFI for a full-blown construction manager. If you just wanted like a VE specialist or a construction reviewer, we could do an RFI for that, if that's what you were.
Well,
We're
now,
not
I was
going.
just trying to make sure that in other words, if we don't go with, Terry, where I was going with this was, if we don't go with a formal construction manager and we decide that Cheney and Dave can handle it from the observation point of view, and we choose not the construction manager, how much value do we actually lose in not doing it that way in what the construction manager might provide in the value engineered options as the project unfolds? Okay. And so that then becomes maybe part of the decision as to whether we just go the observation route, turn Cheney and Dave loose, or we go this other way. Now, if in the end, Tom and you guys turn around and say, nah, you're not gonna really buy that much, we think we can figure this out, and we as a committee, say, yeah, well, we agree, maybe we need to have more meetings with the committee or whatever to move this thing forward as we get into more of the specifics on it. I'm not disagreeable to that.
Yeah.
But I just think before we make the decision, we got exactly what you said, Tom. They are two separate things, and that we all understand that they're two separate things, and which way we go here.
And
What we don't do, which may be a benefit during construction, is handholding for contractors, making the contractors get along with each other better. Contract managers are there every day, and they tend to be able to work out tiffs between the different primes. I mean, we have certain levers that we can use, but especially when you're dealing with a 4 prime project and you don't have one, the GC is technically the head, or probably would be in this case, but if it's not under a single prime, sometimes you run into those issues. And having a construction manager on site every day helps to smooth some of those things out.
Are we allowed in school construction to use a construction manager system? Or I mean, if we have to go to the full 4 primes, we have to sign the contracts. The construction manager loses a lot of leverage.
I think that you're allowed to. Trying to think back on our school projects. I don't think we had one. I don't think we've had one on one that I've worked on, the school projects. But I know we've worked on public projects that have had multiple prime
Yeah,
and
but I'm talking
construction
about
manager.
specifically school projects.
Yeah.
So I think-
There was one on Mount Lebanon. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing, because we got to keep moving here. We're going to wait for a proposal back from the administration on how Cheney and Dave are going to handle things, both at Ike and keeping things moving at the district. And then I guess I'm thinking, Walter, my 2 cents is that between this committee, there's a lot of experience on it, that I think we can do the value engineering and the reviews and stuff like that, unless anybody thinks differently.
And I'm okay with that, Terry. I just want to make sure we all understand that exactly what Tom said, there is a difference.
Oh,
And that when we talked about some of these other things that the construction manager can do, then Cheney's not going to be doing those. And then if we want to keep that part
Cheney's
of
still
it,
going to be involved in observing. Just because
Yes,
you're a construction
absolutely.
manager, somebody has to watch the construction manager to make sure that he's watching the people at night. So Cheney ends up spending the same amount of time with less authority.
understand.
If you wanted to get proposals for construction manager, we could certainly authorize Jared to do that and see what they come in at, but there'll be 6 figures plus.
Yeah, we see between 1.5% up to 3% for their fee.
Yeah.
It may be more if you're talking about, substantial reviews from DD on throughout the end of construction.
Did we have one at the junior high?
I don't know.
I don't think we did.
Because I guess in my head, if we're sitting here 2 years from now and we're, in a dispute and lawsuit and all that, we're going to wish we had.
And I'm
But-
pretty sure we did not have one at were you on board when we did the junior high
Sure.
Cheney?
I was not.
I don't think you had one on that because that was rushed through and you had 4 primes, one of which was bankrupt at the time.
Yeah, the general was bankrupt.
So that project went to hell in a handcart pretty quick. We
Yeah,
did-
especially when
we-
they drilled through the electrical tape on the steps.
We did have one on the gym fitness center.
And why?
Why? The board didn't think I could do the job. So they are a good manager.
Did it pay off? Was it worth it?
My opinion, no.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, if I'm going to work with the construction manager, I'm going to charge additional percentage.
Right.
Okay, because they shift all the burdens
Yeah.
away from them.
Yeah.
And they make me work twice as hard.
Yeah.
Because I have to prove to Walter that I'm right, and then I have to prove to the construction manager I'm right, then I have to prove to this subcontractor that's pulling the wire that I'm right.
All right. Well, any other comments on this? Anybody else? We'll move on. So next meeting, I guess to summarize, you guys will come back with some type of discussion or proposal. Okay. I guess we're gonna move to one. Do we want to go to 1C and D first? So we wait for Julia or not? We could go to 1C and 1D. We're gonna have to
Alright.
get there anyway, so. 1C, the reason it's on here, there's not been a decision made of whether we're gonna put air conditioning in the renovation project, so. We'll open it up to the floor of comments and where your opinion is. So Cinda?
My opinion is, we're doing it, we need to do it right. Do it first time, do it right. Every school, I think every school should end up being air conditioned. And we've got this golden opportunity that was thrown on us by this fire.
Yep.
We need to do it.
Tom?
I don't like it because we'll have to do East Pike and Ben Franklin at some point.
Well, it's something.
point.
At some
Yeah.
point, we need to do all of them.
Right.
Yeah,
When they're
but this
renovated.
would be the fourth, this would be 4 and 5.
Yeah.
It'll double our electric load and it'll quadruple the power requirements. So we have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
But it's probably, Cinda's probably right.
All right. We'll go to Dr. Riggs. Sue, you on there?
Jim's on there.
Jim's on there too.
Yeah, that's, and Sue is. Sue.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, I think we made a big mistake many years ago when we renovated East Pike, and I was principal at the time, and they didn't put air conditioning in then, and yet we want to hold summer programming and different things in the building, and it gets really hot in there. So I would be all for putting air conditioning.
Okay, thank you, Sue, or Jim.
Of the same mindset, it makes sense. I don't know how we don't do it. It'll just be a bunch of Monday morning quarterbacking when we don't, and kids are sweating in the springtime, before they graduate.
Okay, thank you. Walter.
I agree with the concept that now is absolutely the time. If you're going to do this, now's the time to do it because of the extensiveness of the renovation that you're doing. I'm always concerned about the long-term operating costs. I'm not so concerned about the cost of actually buying the equipment. That becomes a sunk cost at some point. But if it's going to double our electric load, double our operating expenses as far as utilities go, and I'm just making that number up because I really don't know what I'm talking about as far as those actual impacts. Is there a different way to do that? Even if it's something like geothermal or whatever, so that we don't get straddled with that long-term operating expense. The one thing that I'm sure of, that I bet a sizable amount of money, is that our electric and energy in general is going to go up and go up substantially over time. So is there another way to provide the comfort in the classrooms for the students, but not necessarily put a standard air conditioning system in it? And that's the question that I think we also need to explore.
Walter, when you were on the board 100 years ago when the junior high was done, the electric bill was about $3,000, maybe $4,000 a month. And when you turn the air conditioning on, they had planned on this. They went over $13,000 a month.
Correct.
And that was and
That was before. That was why I got on the board in the first place, was because of that debacle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to avoid my replacement coming on because of another debacle. Okay.
Well, certainly insulating the building, looking at some of these alternate methods would make a lot of sense. We also don't have to use the design temperatures for the air conditioning. If it's a little warm, it's okay. We don't have to keep everybody at hospital level. So it'd be possible to do a little less air conditioning than you would do if it was running all summer flat out. The building is not likely to be used in the summertime.
Well,
Like you said, the insulation, putting sunshades on the south.
Orienting it properly.
The west side and stuff that's not
Putting
there
real
now.
windows in.
my point, Elijah, is that we need to, if we go this route, make sure that we do whatever we can now as part of this to reduce that operating expense. Because if we're going to chunk out $10,000 a year,
A month.
or $10,000 a month, that's $120,000 a year. In 10 years, that's 1.2 million to the time value of money. And how much then could you spend now to avoid that $10,000 a month for 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Eli, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, to start with on the on the air conditioning side, the first cost for adding AC to the system that we would be installing throughout would be almost unnoticeable, the first costs, and then the costs for energy later on would definitely be higher. But I would say the spaces, you already have a number of spaces that you're going to need AC in. The gym, for instance, the new admin addition, each of the life skills, autism, learning support, all require AC. So it becomes difficult to try and separate out areas that don't get AC off of the system that you already have all the ductwork in place that you need for the heating. So it would be a forced air system, not dealing with unit ventilators anymore. The geothermal, I think, is a great suggestion, one that we would recommend for. This would be a great building for doing that. The initial costs you would definitely notice. Their geothermals are very expensive for first installation, but almost no maintenance for their entire lifetime, which is very long. They sit in the ground and would significantly reduce the energy costs.
I'm not hung up on geothermal. Okay. And I'd certainly want to do some sort of a cost benefit analysis over the long term, given the projected increase in the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, using a net present value to calculate that. But the question is to you also is, are there solar systems that would do the same thing? Is there some other, I don't know what I don't know kind of a thing?
Mm-hmm.
You're the architect. Are there other ways other than a traditional that lower our operating costs over the lifespan of the equipment we would install? And
Sure.
does that lowered energy use justify the expense in an analytical evaluation?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question that I'm asking.
Yeah. And there's a number of ways you can look at it. Solar is another popular one. A lot of places that we've looked at, we've done analyses for both geothermal and solar as we're looking at LEED certification, net zero ready sort of certifications. Geothermal has seemed to be, and we can look at both of these options or more options if you'd like us to. That would be something that CJL would handle, and we'll track through with an energy model.
The other thing that I would ask along that lines is that there seems to be a push by both the federal and the state government to get to that zero carbon. Okay. And I know of several people that have approached me about some land that I have on the far end of the county and putting in a solar farm because there's all these government funds apparently out there that will help you do this to get to that net carbon zero, whatever that is that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So are there funds available because Cinda's looking daggers at me for talking about geothermal and the cost of it. Okay.
I'm thinking about the maintenance costs and upkeep and
But
technology requements for solar. That's
okay.
going to cost a pretty penny too. I know. I'm not
don't know,
looking
but-
daggers at you, by the way. You'll know if I'm looking daggers at you.
But the bottom line is,
yeah.
is there funding available to do something like that from outside the Department of Education?
I believe for schools there's still grants out there. I know for residential some of it was drying up, but now they've written new stuff. So I think that there are grants to offset the initial cost of solar for schools. I'm not sure. I don't think it helps you out maintenance wise on down the road, and maintenance on solar is definitely more than geothermal. That's all stuff that.
Well, to move this forward, sorry, but I think we heard a consensus that we're in favor of conditioning the air there. Now we've asked Hvac Horn to analyze that, put some models together and bring that back to us.
I know I don't want to speak for CJL because I don't know if they're on the call, but I know that that wasn't something that was part of our original contract. I'll talk with them and see where we are with that.
Send something to Jared once you, after you have that discussion.
Okay.
They'll note it. Does that sound good? Okay. Moving on, let's go, while we're on this, let's go to the gym size discussion so we can get that out of our way. There's, I guess the discussion is going to be of whether we want a full-size high school basketball court in this new gym box. And part of that will be whether we want enough bleachers, around that court, or are we okay without the court or without the bleachers? So there's two options there. One is a full-size court with bleachers. One's a full-size basketball court without bleachers. Then the third scenario will be a gym box that is big enough for a high school, well, just for an elementary, I guess, school size basketball court.
With bleachers.
With bleachers, at least on one side.
Yeah, and the stage on the other side,
Yeah.
right?
So, Cindy, we'll start with you again.
Bigger is always better and nicer, but do we have the demand, or will we use, is there any idea what we would use a full-size gym for? And if we did make it a full-size gym, do we need bleachers? It depends on
And
what
that's
we're
a
going
good
to use it for.
question. I'd asked Jared to think about this because we were going to talk about this tonight, and maybe he can talk a little bit about the use of our existing two gyms at the high school.
No.
Go ahead, Warren.
Just let me chime in first, real quick. When we actually did an extensive review of the use of the gyms when we were in the planning stages of the high school gym, the one issue that we found that we were lacking was practice space. The original proposal on that gym was to build this big
1,200 seat.
1,200 seat performance gymnasium. But what we found was that wasn't what we needed. We just needed the practice space. There were some teams that were going out at 9 o'clock at night to start their practices. There were others who were going out at 6 o'clock in the morning to do it.
And when you say practice, though, can you define that? Is
Yeah.
that full-size basketball courts, or is that the baseball team and the
It was
lacrosse?
primarily winter. It was baseball, softball was in there, wrestling's in there.
Right. So my question is then, what size?
Well, let me back up just a moment.
Yeah.
The elementary gym is only slightly smaller than the senior high gym by maybe 10 feet in length and 10 feet in width.
The court.
The court.
Yeah.
Court. So doing a high school gym, the increase to do a full-size high school gym is not that big. Okay. Baseball can practice in anything. Wrestling can practice in either one.
Whether the elementary or the high school.
Yeah,
size.
because the sizes are so close.
Right.
But you can't practice your corner shot
Right.
at a high school or a junior high court. When you're 13, you can't do the corner shot in an elementary gym.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know why we would build anything other than the senior high size court. It gives us so much more flexibility. Everybody from.
But if we don't, the question is whether we need it or.
And so that's where I was going with my comments is now that we've been running the new gym for the last 10 years, do we still have kids going out at 9 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning because we still don't have enough practice space? And that's a question that would be for Jared or for Rob and Mike, okay, as to what, and I don't know the answer, and they may not know the answer offhand either. But I think that's the question that needs to be.
I talked to Mr. McElwain this morning. He said this time of year there can be issues. Of course, looking at our weather today, your spring sports like baseball and softball and those who would typically practice outside need a space to practice inside because of the weather. This year's the hardest. I mean, this time of year is the hardest to find space. Or there's more demand for it.
But do they need a elementary size gym or a high school size gym?
I think it depends. I think Mr. Harley did a nice job saying that, like Horace Mann can be used for batting cages, right? They can be used, it depends on the person and the role. And we met as committee, meaning Aaron, myself, Jared, we discussed about the need for one set of bleachers. Because when we envision this gym, we envision it beyond just athletics. We envision it to be a stage area for performances, for music. So what we thought was the stage area was pretty important to us, so they can have the area to perform off the ground, up so people could see them. And then some bleachers for over access. For example, sometimes when they do a performance, they may bring the student body down. The parents can sit in the chairs, but we'll need a place for the students. So we thought one set of bleachers would be enough for us.
And the bleachers could be folding bleachers?
They'd be retractable.
Would be.
But if you have a high school gym length, so it's about 100 feet. And so you can get about 50 people in a row. Okay, so if you wanted to have 200 people in bleachers, you only need 4 rows. Okay, so that's kind of what you're thinking about. If you want 100 people in bleachers, you only need 2 rows. It's hardly worth making them fold. So it's not the folding isn't really as if you want to have a performance gym for like a junior high basketball game, is 200 people too many? Is 100 too many? And if it's only 100 people, that's only 2 rows. Okay, so you can do 2 rows on one side, the stage on the other side, and a basketball court in the middle. Now,
But I think, Tom, though, the idea with the folding ones was that you could still have the high school size court if you needed it. And then when you pull the bleachers out, then for the elementary size court, then you still have that size court for them. But when the kids are in there practicing.
the elementary is also shorter than the high school size.
Okay.
Is it 10 feet? I think it's 84 feet for high school and 74 for
Well,
elementary.
the point was that you could kind of there could be a compromise there because there's not going to be spectators when they're practicing. Okay. But for the performances, there would be. So then if you had bleachers that went in and out, then maybe you could do both.
Okay, but you have to move the basket then, and you have to change the paint.
No.
We didn't envision the gym being used for anything other than the sole purpose of grades 4 and 5. But when we did our conversation, it was presented to us that the high school and junior high has far enough capacity to do the events and games. So we didn't expect games to be held there.
No, I'm not talking games. I'm just talking about a place for them to go to practice.
I'm
But
talking
are
about,
you saying basketball or are you saying
Anything,
the other baseball and stuff?
anything.
So basketball has to have the high school size. We've got 2 at the high school and 1 at the junior high. So the other ones could just be used for wrestling and other teams that practice.
To your point, Mr. I wouldn't want the baseball or softball hitting brand new. Baseball's on a brand new gym floor. After we put
They don't
$15
use
million.
Nerf- they don't use Nerf balls?
Not all, well, it depends
Wiffle
on
ball?
it depends on the coach. Like I know, like I went crazy at my last position when we just redid the floor for $50,000 and the baseball team was cracking, doing batting practice on the court. So I mean, I think you're right. You have Horace Mann, you have Ben Franklin, you have other facilities to use for those areas. But it's really up to the board what the board's pleasure is. You want a bigger court? We just sacrificed. We wanted more performance areas and more storage.
okay,
We're
now,
not saying we're right though.
one of the things though that we got into at the high school gym was the safety zones.
Mhm.
With that discussion. And so we made the high school court 10 feet. There was no obstruction within 10 feet of those out of bound lines. And surprised that there's no requirement by anybody about those safety lines, which is just insane. So the way the old gym was you could put your feet inbounds when you sat on the bleachers.
Yeah.
And so when somebody was diving after a ball, they would land on the 3rd row up.
Yeah.
So we put those safety zones in, and I would certainly advocate some pretty substantial safety zones in the new gym, regardless of what size the floor is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that tables don't come into play.
Yeah. Well, a lot of good comments and stuff. The last thing I'll throw out before I go around the room here again is another option that I thought of to consider is, my opinion is, the next school that we'll probably renovate is Ben Franklin. Do we wait and put, a full-size gym there if we want one then or need one then, and we have more space to do it and we have more parking space to do it? So just an option. Cinda, we'll go back to you.
That's a good idea, I think. back to what we have now. Are all of the gyms scheduled tightly now for practices during this special time of year when it's so hard? Or is it concentrated on the senior high gyms? Are there people practicing in the Horace Mann gym every night now?
No, not the elementaries.
No,
Ben Franklin,
so, but then,
East Pike.
Prior to COVID, the elementaries were used a lot for community use.
but if,
Between the rec department, YMCA, and all them, we haven't seen it since really COVID. So they're probably almost not used at all at this point in the evenings. Now the senior high and junior high, certainly senior high is probably a lot busier. I talked to Wade. He did not say much about what if sports had to come down to the junior high. Of course, the junior high doesn't have a baseball team, a softball team, any of that type of stuff. That would need to use it.
But it does have a track team.
Does have a track team.
And that when this, and a track team would fill that both gyms at the junior high up immediately. As an example.
they're all our students, so, if the senior high gym is so congested schedule-wise, then why can't the wrestling team, or if it's an old beat-up gym, so let's say Horace Mann, I don't know what the condition of the gym is like, but put the baseball team there. Are we using the space that we have efficiently? And
The only thing I'd like to say about the practicing at the elementary schools, you have to remember they couldn't start practicing until about 4:15 because we are in session in school until then.
well,
So
I've heard,
We also can't leave equipment out because you
right,
use
Right,
those.
take it with you.
Right, yeah, they'd have to bring their equipment, which is fine. I think that's a great idea
Now,
personally, but I
At the
just want to
senior
make
high,
sure.
we also have the cages in the rifle range. That gets double used, and that takes
Yes.
a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
And the teams are also use the fitness center. So as soon as senior high is over, kids are starting to practice.
Right.
Okay, they're getting dressed and getting to practice in various places.
We have a wrestling room as well, that
Uh-huh.
outside of the gyms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the wrestling room is also used by, if there's nobody in there, then you find softball pitchers in there.
Which
cheerleaders.
wrestling and softball and baseball won't be happening at the same time.
Like the
Right, so-
the rifle room, Miss Cinda, is used for batting practice and
Yes.
pitching, so that's perfect.
That's
I think
big
where you get to baseball, softball, you need somewhere to practice fielding or hitting some, fly balls,
Yeah.
which I don't know anywhere is really the most
Yeah, well,
conducive.
the gym gets used for that regardless of what you want to say, but nobody's like batting practice in it now,
Yeah,
which is a big.
that's just a pet peeve. Like I hate you put all that money in and you
Yeah.
see dents and marks on it.
What do you think?
So I have, look at the two options, a high school sized gym with bleachers and a high school sized gym
Court.
court with it. Why do we want a high school sized gym?
Can I say something?
Yeah, I think you're the one that's.
It's only slightly larger.
But
Just stay with me. It's only slightly larger. It allows us to go cross court and allows us to do a lot more things with basketball. But it also, and I would also hold the audience to probably 100 people, so that you have a performance. If they do have a county league 4th and 5th grade thing happening in there, there's still mom and dad can still come. Okay, so we want to have some audience, not a lot though. Okay, because we don't want to have to do the bathrooms for 30,000 people. And we don't want to park for that many people either. So it's a limited performance, but it gives the 4th and 5th graders a place to play, and a lot of cross court.
Could they
What do you
sit
mean?
on the stage? You could sit
You can sit on the stage. Sure,
50 to
sure. Well,
75.
I mean, I'd still put 2 rows against one wall, and you could put 30 chairs on the stage. Okay, the stage is going to be there, and I like the stage on the side. By the way, I think that's a great place for it.
So
Because
Cindy,
everybody's
let's keep this moving.
so what I'm hearing is we want it so 4th and 5th graders can have basketball games. Can't 4th and 5th graders have basketball games on an elementary court?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
Okay, so we're wanting to do,
For 10% more square footage and virtually in a slight degree of expense additional.
a lot.
Was a
A lot
compromise,
of
Tom,
expense.
a full-size basketball court without bleachers? Somebody can set up 50 things maybe on the stage if there's an audience.
I think Jim's got his hand up.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that my fourth grader that I have had a basketball tournament, and they were shuffled between the senior high and the horseman gym, which was in terrible repair. And you're dodging the manhole covers for the volleyball courts and volleyball nets and stuff. It was kind of embarrassing for the district to have other school districts come in for a tournament and not have like a full-size gym. I really think yes, I understand it's only for like a weekend out of a year, but if it is not cost prohibitive to have a full-size court with, a couple rows of bleachers, you could host, a tournament and have a, nice facilities to actually do that. And I don't think we lose anything by doing that. I don't see the downside of doing that.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Go ahead, Eli, you have a comment?
I don't know if this has been brought up or was factored into anything, but whether or not the community is using this gym, I think is important, because you would potentially have adults using the gym at that point.
It's always open to them. The Y, has
Yeah.
done some things and stuff.
It's
so.
important that the gym can be operated independently of the building.
Right.
So that if we have a bunch of folks that want to play basketball on Saturday, they can do that.
Yeah. We'll give you a break, and I'll go
Yeah.
to Georgia.
I'm just on this Division 2 through general construction scheme
Somebody
one,
raise their hand. Go ahead.
about 9.3 million, and this one, scheme 2 is 12.4. So what's the differential on it? Are those both, how are you pricing gyms in each of these?
The gym square footage is, I believe, about the same, and the gym cost would be part of that general construction. Yeah, and we haven't gone through any of the options yet.
Yeah, we haven't done that.
We're waiting for you.
Eli, can I ask
So-
a clarifying question, Mr. Kerr? Is that okay?
Sure.
Eli, are you talking about making a full-size court or a full-size gymnasium? Can you clarify what you're asking this board? Because they're two different things. What is this board debating? If you can help me understand. Are we saying full-size gym, right? Bleachers and all
High
that,
schools,
or just a full-size court?
That's what we're debating.
Yeah, I think what we're asking for is whether or not you need a full-size court in there, and what the capacity you need for the bleachers are. For instance, we could allow just enough room for if you only need 200 people, and then maybe some on the stage, 2 rows, where you can still have in those collapsible bleachers, they can go out to 8 rows or something, where you could have just the first 2 rows that come out during a basketball game. And then whenever you might have some sort of larger performance, or you would need more than 200 people, I don't know if that's ever the case, but you could expand it across over top of the basketball court whenever it's not being used for that purpose.
All right, we're going to, Walter, can you give your opinion, or you want me to come to you last? Toward the-
You can come to me. Make sure the committee weighs in first.
All right. Thomas, I think we know where you're at.
Yeah, I don't think the cost difference is between the two courts is very much. I don't think it's 100,000. We're buying middle space, and the volume is going to be almost the same. The height's going to be the same.
Okay, so you want a full-size court with approximately 200 seat bleacher on the one side.
Full-size court.
A full-size court plus the safety zones,
Wait,
plus seating, and I made up the number of 200. Jim, when you were there, at Horace Mann, there wasn't 200 people in that gym,
seating for 2.
but that would be an appropriate thing. So that way, if we do have a
Yeah,
tournament,
they were packed in pretty close, and then trying to shuffle the games, it was kind of a disaster.
yeah,
Okay,
plus,
we got you.
no, you don't. Okay, plus we need locker rooms for that gymnasium and restrooms for the
Yes,
public.
we'll get to that. Cinda,
Thanks.
You're part of the committee.
I don't see going to a full-size court with full-size bleachers and a full-size safety zone as being anything that is cost efficient for the district, based on the idea that I'm not getting the impression that that gym space would be scheduled and used a lot. I don't know. That's why I was asking.
Would you be okay with the full-size high school court without the bleachers, but then you have a full-size elementary court with bleachers? That's the same size.
I think so, because then we
That's
could
the
use
same.
the high school. We could use the facility to practice for high school,
Right.
just not have competitions. But,
For the
you know,
high
with-
school.
For a high school competition.
Okay, that's the committee other than me and Julia.
Can you give me the difference between a full-size gym versus a full-size court again in square feet?
The high school gym is 84 feet long and 50 feet wide. And the junior high gym is
75 by 40.
75 by 40. So it's 10, the elementary gym is 10 feet smaller in both dimensions.
And those are the court dimensions. Those are the lines of the extents of the court. And then you add the safety, which the safety clearances, which you should have either way. And then if you were adding for the bleachers, if you want to get, I do still have the question about the capacity of what you would be looking for if you're trying to host
200,
competitions.
200, let's just do that.
Well, 200 would just be 2 rows, and you would be able to fit that in 2 rows, which is another, 4 or 5 feet on one side
Of a court.
of the court, right, of the long side of the court.
Well, that at least gives me a benchmark at 200. You can go up or down or not have any, but, so 200 is 2 rows.
I think these guys are wanting to say something here.
Gosh.
Aaron, how many seats would you need though? Say you have a parent night and you have 400 people in that building. How many rows are you going to need? Because like I'm thinking beyond just athletics.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a musical night, play night, or just meeting with parents, what type of seating are you going to need?
Well, just when we were at Eisenhower without, and in our multi-purpose room, we would put every chair we have there, and we're having standing room. We usually have like 200 kids, and like we have a concert for like say 4th grade had a concert. We were at capacity, if not beyond capacity. We couldn't fit everybody in that wanted to come. So
Can I ask a clarifying question? Eli, can you get us a full high school court, not a gym, full high school court, and at least have bleachers that we could go
that's
out
what
8
I was gonna
rows?
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what he's, I mean, but that would, and
I think the only,
what he could do is you could pull it out 2 rows and have a game, or you
Yep.
can pull out 8 rows. Now, one of the things that you're not, the gym you have over there is teeny.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not sure the exact dimension, but teeny is pretty close.
Okay,
You have
Yeah.
over 4,000 feet in the floor of a high school
Right.
gym.
so,
So 4,000 feet is at 7 square foot a person is 400 or 500 people in chairs.
And-
Okay, and I'm making numbers up here, but I'm trying to do it quick. But that's the scale is significantly different. So you'd be able to fit all of your kids
Mhm.
on that floor and still have 200 people in the bleachers. Or you could pull
No,
the bleachers out 8 rows. You'd have 400 people in the bleachers, and then you'd have 300 people on the floor.
And the
well,
way
I
you
was gonna say, we could
design,
put the kids on the bleachers then and have the parents on the floor is what I was thinking,
And
yes.
Cheney, we're thinking about Wimber Elementary. You were the
Yes, sir.
maintenance director there at their elementary school. You have the nice stage on top, doesn't take away from the court, and you have the other set of bleachers. Does that make sense now for a visual representation of what we're
Yes,
talking
sir.
about?
and the stage is on the opposite wall of where the bleachers are.
Yes.
Right.
So for example, if Aaron does have, I think the chair should be for the parents and
Right, that's
families.
what I'm saying, yeah.
Bleachers could be for kids, everybody, however they figure it out, but
Terry Sue,
Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we're thinking about more than just athletics, that you're going to be using that area for
2 rows.
music performances and possibly plays and all of those things that you do with parents. So I think it will be important to have the seating, like Aaron said, that the kids could all sit in the bleachers and the families could sit
And then
on the
there's a
floor
stage
and seats.
here. You gotta get a seat.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're all shaking our heads yes here. So while you're speaking,
This is the
Sue,
court.
do you want to give your opinion on
Oh, I
what
see.
size?
So this will be 75.
Well, it sounds like we would need the full size to get that many bleachers. Am I hearing that correctly?
Or
Not necessarily, not the full-size court. You would only need, either gym, we could have enough bench capacity for all the, extracurricular activities.
Well, if you look at the financial aspect of it and it's not that much more, then I would say go for the full thing so that we can have more opportunities for more people to use it. If it's
Okay.
going to be a whole lot more money, I would say no.
So you're okay with maybe only having 200 seats though, with a full-size basketball court? But you would still have the 800 or the 400 or 500 seat capacity for the stage performances.
So that, Aaron, would that be enough for the students in the school?
Well, we'll probably have somewhere between, I would guess, we would need seating on the bleachers for the class sizes are dwindling a little bit. Right now, you would need about 400. So I would say, a little less than 400, but not that much less, because we are shrinking some, but not that great. So I'm thinking 400 is a good number.
But Aaron, if when I looked, and I'm getting just a little bit ahead here,
Okay,
but if you have 9 classrooms for each of the
Mhm.
grades at 25 kids in a classroom, that's 450
right,
total capacity.
right.
So if you did 400 seats in the bleachers, you might still have to have another row of chairs for the students. If you hit that
Right.
full
If we hit that
450
max, right.
maximum
Just
at
put
some
100 in
point.
the band on the
Right.
stage and call it a
If we hit that maximum, but looking ahead in the next 5 years, the numbers, we are dwindling more than we are growing.
I
So
understood that.
What is the cost difference? To put this in perspective for the committee.
The increase in square foot would not necessarily be 1-to-1. That's how we're pricing things right now. But as Tom said, it would be, you're sort of adding air. The height's going to be the same. You would add probably, one more truss. And all the trusses would be slightly bigger in the other dimension. To think about it that way, it's not like you're adding a number of you're assuming all of the finishes and partitions to do that. You're just adding that much more floor space. So if it's 10% larger in square foot, it may, for this type of a space, only be, 5% more in cost. Those are rough numbers.
Yeah, 5% of what?
5% of the cost of the
I
gym.
know, but what's the
Yeah,
cost?
what's that
of
number? I
the-
think we're at, yeah.
We don't have that broken down for the meeting, but we do have it. I can get that for you.
I'd like to know, please.
I have another question.
Sure.
If we were to choose scheme 1 and the gym is built in that area along where the chain link fence is where we're taking over, is that area big enough to go out another 10 feet toward that chain link fence? Or would that mess around with the location of it? I mean, we can go this way, I guess, but what about, can you make it 10 feet wider
So
and longer in that area?
since you're looking at this, the box, and we'll get into this in the presentation, but the court that's shown in here currently is an elementary court. However, that smaller size court. However, a full-size high school court does fit in this orange box that's shown,
God bless
along
you.
with what do we have, 2 rows for seating?
Yeah, what we have, if you're looking at that plan, we have the elementary size court, so it's 40-foot width, and then we left about 15 feet for bleacher seating on there. So overall, it's about 60 feet wide.
So you almost have enough space to put the larger court inside
Right,
that
the
orange
larger,
box.
the larger court would fit, but without bleachers in this scheme.
You
So
also,
if you did the larger court with bleachers, it wouldn't fit in that area of land.
Unless they were collapsible.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
The larger-
bleachers,
the
aren't
larger
they
the-
always
Aren't they
collapsible?
always collapsible?
No,
They
no.
don't have to be.
Spend more money.
No, they have to be collapsible. That's like a waste of space.
Yeah,
Okay, but
Okay, so,
there is no setback for public, is that correct?
We don't, right,
Oh,
5 feet on the backyard, on the rear yard. We were just leaving a little more space there for getting around the gym, and I believe Cheney brought up issues of getting up on the roof, maintaining that area, and not being so close to the fence.
But the setback is 0, isn't it?
The setback
On
is,
that side yard line, in the public zone.
I can check with our.
I don't want to
civil
go that
rep.
close.
I
think it
understand
was
that,
5
I understand that, but if you have to add 5 feet and 5 feet, you can do that. On both sides, you can pull that off. And you may not want to do that, but if there's a question, how close can you go? It's not 25 feet, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so, which is really good. Okay, so,
We can move this back towards the fence line.
so either side, a gymnasium with either size court and bleachers would fit in that space.
In this space as it's currently.
Okay, all right. That's fine.
so that would be the gym, that would be
Finally got the answer.
that'd be the high school.
Okay, we good, or are you ready to say anything, Joey? or-
No, I
I'm just-
no, I just
I'm
want
just
to
showing
know.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be cleaning up matters. Since it will work, I think the real issue for me is, as far as the full-size court, is for practice only at some level above the elementary, whether that's middle school, high school, whatever. With the bleachers extended all the way back, I think you can make that still work and make it work safely. Okay, and then let it squeeze out, whether it's 2 rows of bleachers for the kids play or the elementary kids playing basketball, or all 8 rows out for some other academic or performance issue. I think that's the way to go. Make sure there's enough room there for the full-size basketball court, even if you don't mark it that way up front, so that if you do need that capacity for practice, you can do it. And then with the collapsible bleachers, if it fits in that footprint, I think that's the way to go.
Okay, I second that. Exactly that's a compromise. I think it's a fair compromise. It allows the offset to the property line. We already have that stream that's eroding right at that fence. I was over there Saturday kicking around, and that stream's coming into the fence area already with erosion. So I really do not want to move that foundation any further to the west. So I think the compromise, so it sounds like we're gonna move forward with a full-size court that fits within the gym, bleachers that come out however far for the elementary size court, bleachers come out further for performances for the stage area.
Assemblies, whatever.
Yeah. And I'm gonna suggest that we paint for both while we're painting, while the subcontractor's there.
If you can do that, great.
Okay. Moving on. We'll go back up to 1A. So before, Elijah, you start your presentation, I just want to say that, I think very good discussion. We're continuing with being flexible and compromise. I'm excited about, this process of investing in our buildings. Before Eli starts through his presentation, I just want to reinforce that these are not final approved stamped plans. What we do want to come out tonight with, though, is a consensus on one option of the schematic plans. And then that way, that gives our architect the ability to start moving into final design of more detail. we're not going to talk about where windows are going tonight. We're not talking about where doorways are going and that sort of thing, and chalkboards and the other boards. So, and then the other thing I wanted to say, and Tom left the room, I'll wait to say that, but hopefully if he comes back soon here, there is room to expand some of these wings and that sort of thing. Like, again, the admin wing is shown. The next stage that Eli and his team will get into is actually detailing those rooms and the sizes of those rooms. That's not really for tonight because we're not there yet. Looking forward to the comments. And then, there was an article in tonight's Indiana Gazette about school districts investing in their buildings. And we've been lack at doing that in this district. We've pushed off, and I think, Jim, you brought up about other school districts coming into our district, and we've all gone to other districts in our county and in the surrounding area, and a lot of the other districts have upgraded a lot of their buildings. And hopefully this is the start of our process through that. But since Tom hasn't made it back yet, I wanted to go on record saying that we had a preliminary good list of what rooms we needed in this new building. We will continue to verify that through Tom's academic committee meeting. Bless you, Lord. So, again, we don't want to get into the weeds tonight of what's the sizes of all these rooms. That's going to be done in Tom's committee meeting with the number of rooms, the type of rooms, and the sizes of those rooms. And then what I'm going to suggest is after that's verified in the academic committee meeting that we put on Cinda's policy and personnel committee, we start looking at staffing this new building. So then that way over the next year or two, when we're hiring and people are leaving due to whatever reason, retirement and other reasons, we can start backfilling maybe some positions specifically for needs in this new building, say STEAM. We don't want to open the school and then start, backfilling those things. So, Tom, just so you got the whole gist here, I understand we want to verify these types of rooms, numbers of rooms, sizes of rooms again, and I welcome doing that in your academic committee meeting.
Thanks.
And we've started that process, but it does need double check, triple check. So with that, Eli.
And well, just one more thing before I start in the presentation, we are meeting with faculty tomorrow to go through the program and get their input on the programming as part of building this next pass of the project.
And you'll be meeting with Cheney and Dave and talking about more maintenance stuff.
And Mr. Chris, it's okay, Eli, if I can add to that, I have to give a lot of credit to Mr. Evanson and Ms. Eisenman, because they said, look, it's time together. We put Horseman in this conversation as well, so they asked input. So when Elijah says they're speaking with teachers from both Ike and Horseman. So well done to Aaron and Mr. Evanson and Mr. Kerr for making that suggestion.
When do we decide the population of the school that we're designing for?
In your academic committee, when you're doing the rooms and.
Okay.
Some of that work's already done.
Right.
Yeah.
Aaron and Mr. Harley worked together on that, so we gave them the feedback we want. We double checked some of the rooms, but we'll do it again. But we want to make sure it's good, so we feel we're in a solid position. But again, we'll vet it through your next committee meeting, sir.
My concern is that I'm looking at this like Walter is, and we're designing for 450 people plus life skills, plus autism,
Yes, sir.
plus all those other things. So
Yes, sir.
we're designing a building for 475, 500.
Okay.
The student population in first grade is 350.
All right, well, let's keep going. That'll be in your committee.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Terry.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as Terry said, from this, we have the opportunity to flex a little bit in and out. Overall, we're trying to make a decision tonight on the big picture moves of, the major elements of the building, which are the classrooms, the gym, and the admin area. With that, do have a handout for everyone, but I can present it on, well, sort of small on the screen. so that you're seeing the same thing, I'll present it on here, and everyone on, online, I'll try to do my best to describe what I'm pointing to. But, overall, what we're starting with here is the original building was, so everybody can hear you online. Starting with,
Hold on.
Eli, if you're going to try to describe what you're pointing to, can we have somebody use the mouse and have the mouse visible on the screen so people can see?
There you go. Okay. So you can be Eli.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll be Eli's hand.
We'll see how well he describes to you.
Sliding.
So, building, original buildings constructed, 1954, much different era for
There we
both,
go.
academics and architecture. You have a really long, flat building, double-loaded corridor that goes on for a mile in both directions. And you have additions that have been done to the building that, the one addition in the 60s, in fact, lengthened the one hallway. And then in the 80s, cut down on the idea was to add insulation and to cut down on solar gain. So that was good, but we have new things that we can do to the building that will perform better and present a little bit better as well. We're going to be looking at reoccupying this building in 2024. So exactly 70 years since it was originally constructed. What we really want to be looking for in this major construction for the district is something that's going to not only satisfy the needs of today, but far into the future. I threw another 70 years on this building, which I don't think is unreasonable given that it's in pretty good condition, and we're going to be doing a lot of new work and a lot of renovation to bring everything up to today's standards, but looking at performance for academically the next 70 years. Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, so I'm sure that you all know better than I do that our methods and styles of education evolve rapidly with every generation, and
Give me the microphone, please.
So-
They can't hear it on
Yeah.
on the web.
our methods and styles of education are evolve rapidly with every new generation and new technologies. So one of the things that, or a number of the things that are important now, they include collaborative spaces, inclusivity, diversity, and these are captured through things like STEAM, the STEAM program. So the question kind of becomes, how do we provide these sort of spaces to meet today's educational environment in these rigid 1950s, 1960s school buildings that are the bulk of our current school building inventory. So what you're going to see in the schemes that we are presenting here today, we tried to provide some of these more open collaborative spaces, more learning support spaces, looking at spaces that maybe didn't exist for programs back in when the school was originally built, like STEAM. Spaces like the library, whose functions have changed since then, and also looking at how to provide a little bit more flexibility in the building itself so that it doesn't just meet the needs of today, but can also adapt for the future as education continues to evolve.
Thank you, Chris. As far as the focus is and what we're, again, looking at today, and we've been over some of this in the meetings before, but just wanted to list everything that we're looking at this point for both site and then the school. And we're going to rehash each of these points, but I did want to hit some of these. We looked at parking, bus loading, and traffic in some of the meetings that we've had previously. The idea being that we're not going to be adding significant additional busing. In fact, maybe only one or two new buses. So the busing will still be all on street, so we'll not need to take some of our valuable real estate to be only bus parking. The parking, we're looking at considerations for 35 spaces off street in order to mitigate the load to the neighborhood parking around it. One of the major things that we also looked at in our previous schematic design was secure and prominent entry. Both of the schemes that you're going to see today feature an admin in that same area out in front of the curved glass. So we'll both be providing secure entrance as well as removing that glazing and sort of getting two birds for one stone out of that. In terms of the prominence, we want this building to reach out to the community, show a good face, opportunities for branding, and promoting the school, not only with the admin, but with the entire facade. And that's leading into the next steps, but some of the moves that we're making from a schematic standpoint do impact that. So setbacks and screening, we've already been in discussions with the borough to get things moving, and just preliminary discussions as we're looking at some of the big picture moves that we may have to make, as well as discussing the stormwater management implications, the opportunities for outdoor ed and integration of some of these stormwater management moves into utilization of the outdoors and the landscaping. Community access and security, whatever options we do, we need to make sure that whenever it's not specifically the school students and faculty using it, that the community can use the areas of the building that they're supposed to, but be separated from the rest of the building as needed. Massing is an architectural concept that describes sort of the big picture moves of a building, the box of the gym, the size and scale and orientation of large elements of the building, so that you get a sense for how it feels to interact with the building as you're walking around it, approaching it, entering the building. As far as the moves that we're making for the building itself, we've looked at a number of schemes, and again, this is the product of consolidating options that we've presented before. I believe we've been through 10 or 11 different options that we've synthesized and boiled down to these two that we're presenting today. The two essentially that we're going to see today are what we're calling hub options, as well as a stacked option. We've looked at courtyards, gardens, daylight, shared light as part of this. It's not a new concept, but it's something that a lot of schools are returning to, and there's a lot of science to back up the benefits of all of the daylight and visual access to gardens, greenery, trees, that sort of thing. So that's something that we're looking to incorporate into any design that we're doing. The gym and the auditorium, I think we've already talked through a lot, so I won't belabor that. The administrative program we've included on the slides. Right now it's just a box, and it could take a lot of different shapes as we dig down further into that program. We have a decent idea from the previous schematic design that we did. However, we understand that we're taking a new look at this, and its form can change, as well as the size of the spaces needed, because we were looking at 250 kids before, and whatever the final number is, it's going to be bigger, and you're probably going to need some more space for that, for the new administrative addition. HVAC upgrades we've also already discussed, so won't go any further there.
Delayed. Should pop up. Maybe.
Yep.
There it goes.
Okay, here we go. So generally, this is the first shot at a program that we've looked at with our committee members. Again, this is something that we'll look at with faculty, staff tomorrow, and then again with Tom in board review. Generally, both of these schemes cover 18 total classrooms. We've looked at options for lockers, but that is digging a little bit down into the weeds right now. But we did want to bring up that we have started to look at that. As far as the special education spaces, they're much more impactful. There's a lot more of them than there were in the previous building, and we're looking at combining classrooms with the two grades coming into here. But these are the classrooms that we've identified as being needed. Again, not only for now, but looking into the future.
Elijah, just a point of clarification. I seem to have read, I think, in your program that those special needs or special education spaces, they're actually physically only about a half a classroom. Is that correct? They're not a full classroom.
Some of them are, however, so yes, there we go. The spaces that Chris has bracketed here are smaller. However, the life skills room and the autistic support room are actually larger than a typical classroom.
Okay.
They'll have needs for the showers, the bathroom, cool down space. So
Yeah, I just wanted to
larger.
Yeah.
clarify that, especially for the public, that in addition to the
Absolutely.
18 regular classrooms,
Yeah.
these specials aren't going to necessarily be that same full
No.
size.
No.
Correct. The specialty spaces are art, STEAM, library, gym, music band, cafeteria. Because we are increasing the size of the school, and I believe we've already discussed this, but the current multi-purpose space that's cafeteria, gym, auditorium is no longer going to be large enough. There's going to be too many students moving through it for it to function still as the one space to do all of those things. So that's why we're looking at the gym box, and the current multi-purpose space is going to be solely a cafeteria. We have been in discussion with a kitchen consultant. We have a proposal that we need to share with the board for looking at that cafeteria, or looking at that kitchen space and deciding how that fits into if there's enough space to renovate, or if we need to add any new square footage for that kitchen. But that is sort of for the next pass of detailing. The art, the STEAM, and the library are really some of the main spaces that we're looking at as opportunities for advancement of the program and of the school into this next era of learning. And we'll go through a number of those thoughts and ideas when we look at the schemes. But just quickly, administrative wing, again, we talked about the secure entrance, but we'll have a principal's office, conference room, faculty lounge, nurse's office with laundry facilities, restroom, and then school counselor, reception, administration, copy mail. And sort of part of this is the lobby area. We did want to maintain, certainly with the increase of new students, larger gathering space still outside of that main entrance and the admin area.
And there's room there to go north or east to make that larger if need be.
Right.
And I like the fact that you made that gathering space bigger than what we were planning before.
So here we have the existing plan. As I said, on board there's you have the nice lobby area there at the front, but admin is sort of spread out. You have the multi-purpose space there also right at the front, but you don't have maybe the parking needs or the size necessary for the gym and the two spaces that we're now considering. Next slide. So here's scheme one. we're all on one floor, but in order to break up these long corridors, this is what we're referring to as the hub scheme. We cut through the exterior walls in 2 locations, one on each corridor, here on the west wing, and then again on the south wing. What this provides us is some flexible area outside of each bay of classrooms. And that space can be used for a number of things. We've already talked through a myriad of options and ways in which this would be beneficial to the teachers with Aaron. And this could be, there could be STEAM activities out here. There could be movable book carts. There could be, it could be a small recess sort of area. It could be just a way to take some kids out of the classroom and learn in a different way just outside. The learning support spaces, which are highlighted in pink, are scattered throughout the common areas. We've moved the music and band over towards the new gym box addition, which is on the western area here where we have a nice large area. And that also keeps the sound of the music and band away from the classrooms. We've grouped art over here as well as part of this sort of specialty area. In the center of the building.
And they can go practice their performances
Right there,
easier
yeah.
than if they're on that.
Right.
Mhm.
You have the storage that's right there, able to be move extra instruments out into the performance area as well. Off of the other thing I wanted to talk about while we're talking about the hubs is while you get a lot of really good daylight because of this extra exterior, it also presents an opportunity, which you'll see later on in the massing, to put your mechanical units up on top here. And with this new construction, you can extend the facade height up higher to screen the mechanical units. But these present also some more interest to the facade and a way to break up the long flat areas. But again, getting back to functionally coming in through the main door, we have our admin box. We have a nice large gathering space in front of the cafeteria. And one thing we want to highlight here is STEAM library, prominent in the really right in the heart of the building. These can be more flexible spaces, and right now they're shown as boxes, but this is an area that we really like to focus on in the next phase of development. And these can take on a lot of forms and have a lot of impact for the school. So we're going to want to dig into this much more deeply. But so far we've got a nice large STEAM room that can be showed off to any parents coming in right off the main lobby, as well as the STEAM library room, which could be open, folding partition. You could have it partially closed off. There's a lot of options that can be worked out here. On the gym box side, what we have shown is a secondary entrance. And as you'll see, there's a current right of way that goes out into, it's currently just grass, but the borough does own the road. The right of way extends out that way. So whether or not we need to ask the borough to extend that is something for future discussion, but at least having a sidewalk off of that road where you would be able to add a new curb cut and provide handicap accessible parking there. You could have concessions right off of that main door if they're needed, depending on what this gym takes on as its final use. You also have male and female restrooms off of the back, which are able to be accessed by the playground. so the kids don't have to run back through the building if they need to use the restroom. We have storage for the additional storage for the gym behind there. Am I missing anything on the gym? Okay, over to the south wing, we've of course maintained the kitchen and mechanical rooms where they were. However, provided another hub right off of this area, and we've provided 2 classrooms as an extension of the south wing and a storage room, which is going to be probably a 2-story storage room, given the grade change that we have here. That would take the place of that would have the tractor and all of the outdoor equipment that's currently part of the main wing, moving that out to off of the main drag of the hallway.
Then the second story of that would be the other storage, right, the top floor, which
Right.
would be level with the classrooms.
Right. The top story of that storage space could be the paper storage, general storage for the rest of the building. Chris, do you want to advance to the next slide? We can talk over the. So this slide shows generally what's existing to be renovated versus new, and we've done this with the other scheme as well. Just sort of gives you a general look at where we would be looking at new construction versus renovation. This is picked up in the estimates as well. As you'll see, there are a number of small additions in this scheme. This is something we're going to talk about later, but and the fact that it takes up a larger footprint than you're going to see in scheme 2. This is an aerial view of a quick SketchUp model that shows, again, the massing of this scheme as we have it so far. In the next pass of design iterations, we're going to be looking much more closely at what exactly the facade looks like. But for this level of design, we wanted to show you in 3 dimensions what some of these spaces look like and how some 2-story elements can break up the look of the building.
Eli,
Mhm.
did you say that this storage unit that's built on the south end of that south wing,
Mhm.
is that supposed to be 2-story?
So that would be 2
Or
stories.
that is 2-story, but it's not, okay,
Right,
all right,
right.
because of the grade.
The top of it would be level with the existing roof because of the grade. It sort of drops down. So the tractor would be in the lower area,
Okay,
and then the paper storage would be up level with the rest of the building out there.
okay.
And I think one thing to add, maybe Eli, is in both of these schemes, we tried to minimize the impact on the playground area.
Right.
And this minimally impacts that with those 2 little hub areas. The gym space really doesn't take a whole lot of it because that was where the old temporary classrooms were.
Yeah.
That was one of our priorities or whatever, was to maintain that space.
And at the same time, while we are taking a little bit out of the playground, there's opportunities to provide immediate access to the playground from both of those hubs, really. So whenever 4th grade goes out to recess, they can access the playground through, I don't know if you can point it out, Chris, there you go. One of the side spaces off of the classrooms. We would be able to provide a new playground access from there.
Eli, what
Actually,
was ever the
actually-
point of, I'm sorry,
Right.
what was ever the point of blacktopping that whole rectangle on the inside, outside? Where he just put the arrows, why did they ever blacktop that whole thing?
The whole playground.
Yeah, I mean, what would?
It's a good question. He doesn't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if
There's certainly
Walter.
other things we can do with.
That was before my,
Yeah.
And I think
that's
the plan
way-
is to remove some of that.
Okay, good. I
With
wanted,
this.
it could be taken up because
Yeah.
it's always been,
I think that's the way playgrounds used to be,
Yeah.
when I went to school. you fell down on the playground, you always got hurt.
Yeah.
Even our monkey bars had asphalt under them. You fall off the monkey bars, you would end up with a broken arm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and
So
they,
you
I
didn't
think
fall
that's
off, you learned
changed.
that.
Over- yeah.
And the one nice thing too about this one, I think too, is, well, both of them is that size of that parking lot. And again, it doesn't take away our playground
Right.
area. It's a very good idea, I thought, was that big parking lot there. And then,
If you do the entrances to the playground off your hubs, like you just drew, the entrance from the lobby to the playground becomes much less important if it needs to be there at all. Or you could go through the STEM library to the playground. One of the things I'd like to see happen on this is
I
that
don't
all,
see what you mean, Tom. Can you repeat that?
yeah, this entrance right up here. If you're gonna have the kids fall out through these two spaces, okay, to the playground, this is as important as an entrance as it is now.
Right.
So you could utilize all that space.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
actually use the library to go through the library to the playground. My other point is that these steps disappear. Okay, we start grading things, we start moving the ground around a little bit so that there are no steps, and everything's wheelchair accessible.
and while you're on, because I had that same
Yeah.
comment, but also up near the gym, you have a main access to the gym, and then one room to the east, you have another access.
Yeah, this will come out and this could become a storage or something. This could be the main entrance, you have the block here. So, and this could probably be a little more friendly and open. But it's a nice entrance to the playground. It also gives us the ability to enclose that playground. Okay, and control the playground and things in there.
Public wouldn't have to go through the building. to get-
Yeah, that's a great point, Tom, and that's something that we definitely wanted to discuss was the option of having that library be the access if it's much less utilized. If most of the kids are streaming in and out of those side areas, if you could capture all of that space as the library and have it be it could be open to the lobby, and you could have a set of doors through the library out to the playground, knowing that it's not going to be used as much.
Oh, you're not gonna put 250 kids through that door.
Right.
But you
It could be an emergency type.
Well, I'm even thinking, on the day when it was 70 last week, you could open those doors and go out onto a porch.
Yep.
Okay, something like that. This week you wouldn't do that, but
No,
having
we
these
could
options,
possibly, yeah.
but it becomes a lot more interesting.
No, makes sense. Makes sense.
All right, I think we can move on to option 2 here. So we did want to show an option where we look at 2 stories for the building. We talked about whether stairs and an elevator were a deal breaker. Said at this stage, no, we do want to talk through that. So we wanted to show an option where we are providing 2 stories, and this move benefits us in a number of ways. One of the first ways that we're looking at is the space on the site and the infiltration required by providing new impervious square footage. We're going to have to deal with some stormwater management no matter what, but this scheme, we end up with far less additional impervious area, and because we're going vertical instead of horizontal with our new program. Well, let me start with the classrooms. As we were looking at what happens with new construction for 2 stories, you have to provide new foundations. You need to provide heftier columns, more structural is required, and for that level of demolition in an existing building, it would be more cost effective to demolish the wing and build all new, as opposed to trying to dig in and dig under and needle beams and whatnot. So the scheme that we have shown is demolishing all of the west wing and building that all as new as part of the lobby and admin. We did look at doing this on the south wing, but there wasn't enough space. And additionally, it's more efficient we're able to maintain a lot of the spaces on that south wing as they are currently. while we're looking at just demolishing the west wing to build new as it should be today. One of the options we wanted to show, we also wanted to show the gym in a different location, but it did just work out this way that it made more sense to put it on this end of the building. Whenever we look at moving the gym to this end of the building, we do open up our corner of land for a lot of on-site parking over here. I believe we can fit, what did we say, 40 cars, Chris? Correct. Because we're able to pull the west end of the building in with the new construction. And we are showing something similar to what we have in Scheme 1 with the hub. This could take on essentially a number of forms, but this is going to be what we felt was a nice compromise between a cost-efficient option and one that provides the sort of new learning opportunities that we're showing in Scheme 1. So in this one, we do have stairs and an elevator. Moving down to the south wing, we've maintained art where it is. Essentially, it stays. The film room stays. The storage stays. We've pulled music and band and the associated storage down, again, away from the classrooms. And we have a secondary lobby that's easily controlled off of this, what is currently the access for the kitchen and mechanical space, but we can provide accessible parking back here in order to access the gym and the stage there. We have the new supply room also on this end, just off of the gym storage in the back. So up to the second story. Again, we're just doing this, all we need to do is this west wing of the building. We have the opportunity to build the size classrooms that we need, the walls where we need them, spaces where we need them. We do have a faculty room shown on this floor. However, we believe we can fit, we want to have a single consolidated faculty room if we can on that first floor. And we would be able to use that space for something. I believe we need to show another learning support classroom. But another nice large STEAM library up here on the second floor. And one thing that we wanted to also bring up was the opportunity for a green roof on this floor. At the roof of the new admin, we'd be able to easily structure it for that, and you would reduce the infiltrations 1-to-1 by adding a green roof, and provides something nicer to look out over whenever you're in that STEAM library room. Here's the massing for this option, where you have a really nice opportunity for connection to the community through this brand new wing, 2-story wing, the STEAM library room, which you could imagine as a glass box. Again, we're going to be looking at how the facade works out in this next pass of design, but again, we're thinking welcoming, inviting with this space. The gym box is much more prominent, as well as this lobby here in this scheme, and we wanted to show an option that shows that, and again, an opportunity for branding and showing off your new building to the community. So here we have the costs that we were looking at. Again, these are just based on square footage numbers. They're current RSMeans data that is up to this year. Again, with the square foot number and with today's volatility, these could vary, and we're going to be taking closer looks at this with looks at actual takeoffs as opposed to sort of bulk square footage numbers as they are right now. But you'll see that Scheme 2 is a good deal more expensive. That is mostly due to the scale of the demo that needs to take place. And then you have the 2 stories of construction, which is going to require a little bit more substantial structure.
So Elijah, quick question on that, on your cost there. Under Division 21 fire suppression,
Mhm.
that 238, is that for like a sprinkler system, or is that your firewalls, or what does that represent in the fire suppression?
That is a fully sprinklered building. We're pretty much going to be, unless we get really fancy with fire separations, which are not inexpensive themselves, we're assuming that we're going to need to sprinkler the entire building in both options. That's renovation and new construction
In the second option, for sure, because of the 2-story.
because of the 2-story.
But
Right?
you could certainly look at putting the firewalls in on the 1-story building and dividing it into 12,000 feet. That's what they were doing at the Ben Franklin Middle School.
Yeah,
And I'm sure that would be less. The problem in PA American's water system is that we'll pay at least $12,000 a year for fire service. Just for your ongoing costs. I'm just
yeah. I
mentioning
mean, I just want to be sure, I just want to understand what you were putting in that, using to fill that number with. We can certainly have that other more in the weeds discussion. I just want a basic understanding where you were coming from.
Yeah.
Sure.
Division 32 exterior improvements is site work. It's not facade work, just to be clear.
Where's that now?
The last one is exterior improvements. Division 32 is site work, park paving and landscaping.
Yeah, we are
No
looking.
No handicap playgrounds in 132,000. I'm sure of that.
I do need to check on some of these numbers with our estimator, our estimating division as we get down deeper into this, but we did want to definitely take a first pass at these numbers to give everyone an idea of what we're seeing.
Yeah, this is a throw it up against the wall type number. The mistakes that are made on the first scheme 1 are the same mistakes made on scheme 2. So proportionally, they're the same. I mean, that's, that really, if you made a mistake on paving, it's the same mistake on both of them. So
Correct.
it's the comparison of the 2 schemes
Mhm.
that you're looking at.
Understood.
So, in summary, we have written down here pros and cons, and we would love to hear some more once we wrap this up. But the ones that we were looking at for scheme 1, the pros are shortening the hallways, providing these individual flexible spaces. You have a real opportunity to hide the HVAC. I think you could make that argument for both of them. We can provide screening on some of these taller, on the 2-story space that would be less visible, but we did include it here. The massing and presentation to the community, I think that also could be a pro for both of them, but and then the cost, as we're seeing it now, should be far less expensive. Cons are you have a whole bunch of additions and tie-ins that are needed that could bring the cost number up as we dig down into it, and I really ask our estimators some more hard questions about the detail. The complexity of the construction is going to be more difficult for that. That's on the contractor, but
In scheme 2.
in
Scheme
scheme 1.
Buildings, do you think that building a 2-story building is going to be simpler than knitting in a bunch of 1-story additions?
Well, they'll be able to start from a blank slate. They'll be able to demo all that wing, and they'll just have to tie in at the lobby and at the gym space.
And I'm going to throw out that both of them are common construction methods or additions. You're not saying that either one is like
has problems,
Yeah.
or it's complex. I mean, it's
Yeah.
common either way.
Right.
Yeah, we're not building a reactor here,
Right.
but
Or a
we
hospital.
are gonna demolish 20,000 feet of building and dispose of it.
Yeah.
So that cost comes in
Right.
in order to get a blank slate.
And
Most
that's
of the work is-
representative of the estimate.
On the stormwater system, my suspicion is that we're gonna need a stormwater system in either condition. And if I remember the Indiana Borough,
Okay.
what?
Oh, so.
When you only say 3 words a meeting, Cheney, we're gonna listen to it.
Information he needed.
The stormwater ordinance in the borough, I believe, would take the whole site into account regardless. And we're gonna have to release the water at a certain level, and we're not gonna waive off entirely existing impervious surface. We're going to have a substantial stormwater system regardless of which scheme you go with.
Correct. And we are looking at ways, we're well underway with looking at how to deal with this and a number of options.
Yeah, speaking personally, I don't want to see a stormwater system above ground. I don't want to see a fence around it. I don't want to have to deal with it. So I want it to disappear. We don't have a big enough site. If we could dump the water into the pond next door, they'd never notice it, that'd be fine, but I don't think they'll allow us to do that. The other thing is that we probably need more than just 2 fire stairs to get to that second floor. We need a more of a broader, either a pair of broader stairs or a third staircase that's more ceremonial.
More monumental stairs.
Yeah, well, it just, the thought of having 200 kids up there plus another 50, so 250, okay, and hitting 2 staircases, that's going to be pretty chaotic. So, and especially if they're, if they're 4 feet wide, they're going to be substantially wider than I think you're giving yourself credit for, and including maybe a third staircase.
Sure. And I think we do have opportunity for that, and off of that main lobby area, off of the library, off the steam, that could be, I think, pretty easily integrated into that.
Yeah.
So, scheme 2, one of the things, now we did show this in scheme 1, we did show a steam and a steam/lobby. That's something that's open for discussion. But in scheme 2, we do show 2 dedicated steam rooms. That's something that was brought up very strongly favorable.
Well, I think that may have changed though, after, I thought Aaron and Kevin, they were, after some discussion, were in favor of 1 steam room, right?
Yeah, if we can, I guess the goal is looking forward that moving more towards STEAM and more away from library. So you could take that library space and make it more into the STEAM area. So you would have 2 areas in essence. And you'd have that open space is what we were talking about.
So if we did scheme 2 though,
We could use it.
4th grade would be in the steam room in level 1, and 5th grade would be level 2.
Yeah.
Do we not want to maybe make a larger steam room somehow so that the kids from both grades could get together and work cooperatively? And
That's kind of
because that's what's happening in the junior high with the robots. I mean, it's kids of all ages, and that's
kind of what Terry was alluding to in retrospect after we thought about it. We like that. We like, if you look at scheme 1, you see that open area there that we can bump into the library if we need to, bump out, whatever we need to do. I like that more as a flexible area and doing that so we could have 4th and 5th graders there together. It's a great idea.
Well, I appreciate the 2 schemes being presented the same, but substantially different. I don't see the advantage with the 2-story scheme. That breaking the kids away from the ground. I think that's stacking them. I just don't see that as being an advantage in this particular age group of this building. We have the ability to put them on the ground, have easy access to the playground to the outside, easy access to all the rooms without any handicap considerations. I don't know why we pursued the second floor. It's also almost 8 o'clock, Terry, so I'm trying to run you ahead.
Okay.
So jump in there.
Well, Cinda go first, and I'll say one thing first, though. With the two-story scheme, there's not a significant reduction in stormwater runoff, I don't believe, because you're still adding the gym box in both, which is about a wash. You're adding the admin area, which is about a wash. So the only additional space is some classrooms and stuff. So I'm gonna say it's maybe 20%
Does
increase.
the parking area not count as that also, though?
Well, they
Is that-
both have parking.
But the scheme 2 has 40,
40 and the other one has 34.
yeah,
So
so
there's a
it's
little
got
bit
more
there.
spaces, but.
Yeah. So it's not a significant
Well,
reduction in
Yeah,
the
and
stormwater.
what I
runoff.
said, Terry, though, is that they're probably gonna take all of the impervious surface.
Right.
And we're gonna have to store that water,
Correct.
new or old.
Right.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
difference between the two is insignificant.
Right.
It's
Right.
gonna be this.
That's my point. Thank you. So you've already stated your
I've already
option
stated mine,
one,
'cause, yeah.
Cinda?
I agree with scheme 1. I think I like it better. The one thing, I've got 2 questions about it. In scheme 2, we show 7 parking spaces, I think it is, right outside the mechanical area. But on scheme 1, we don't show any parking spaces there at all. I thought maybe there shouldn't be parking there when I looked at this because of being able to have access to that area. But if scheme 2 can have parking spaces there, then maybe we could add 4 or 5 more parking spaces on scheme 1. And
Sure.
I don't know, I assumed that it wasn't. And then,
This can be extended too. So,
You have to be able to access that parking.
but we're
Yeah.
only delivering in 40-foot stake beds, right? Not 18 wheelers.
well,
Right?
Or box truck.
Yeah, the box truck, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a small vehicle. We're not dealing with that.
and the other question I have about scheme 1, if I'm reading it right, there's a set of restrooms attached to the gymnasium. And then there's a set of restrooms in the east-west wing that's kind of halfway down the wing, so the kids wouldn't have to go too far. But then the other set of restrooms is straight across from the cafeteria, which I think is good because kids, at lunch need to go to the bathroom. But there's nothing clear down on that north-south wing. There's nothing down toward the end. Is that, I was only there a couple times. It seems like a pretty long distance for the kids to walk to go clear up to that lobby area to the restroom. And that's just it's good that the restrooms are up there around the life skills rooms. I just didn't know if that was something that should be considered down on that wing also.
Sure. The reason for the placement of the restrooms as they're shown here is the 2 existing banks of fixtures where they are. One of the great assets of your current building is that great it is a walkable underground area, and you can run plumbing out there if we
Pretty
need
much
to.
anywhere you want to.
Right, so we can take a look at that. I know we've done some preliminary numbers on fixture counts, and I think we would be covered technically by these guys, but we can definitely look at, I think we would need to look at maybe adding some square footage in order to pick those up down there. In the
Well,
south
depending upon the outcome of Tom's committee's review of the rooms and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, that
we
was
move
just,
forward?
so scheme 1 is
All
my
right.
choice.
Thank you. Julia? Sue?
She's still with us.
You still on?
Yep, I'm here, sorry.
Okay.
I like scheme 1 for several reasons. One, for any students with special needs or anyone that gets hurt to have to use an elevator, or if there would, be an emergency that the elevators wouldn't work, you're going to have lift chairs and all kinds of things to get students down from second story. One question I had, where is the reading specialist room? And Erin, is one reading specialist room enough?
As of right now, one half size, possibly two half size, depending on how many learning support students we have in the building. We may need, like, so one time you might need 3 learning support teachers, and one time you might need 2, depending on the total number of caseloads. So that those can be bounced out between the two is our thought, to share those spaces. That one year it might be learning support, one year it might be reading specialist, that kind of thing. But right now we only would have 1, maybe 2 reading specialists. So we'd be able to use those spaces that way. It depends again on how what do the classrooms too, because if we're not using a classroom, they could use a classroom, was the thought also. Because I want to make sure we have enough classrooms though, in case we have a larger class.
All right, that makes sense. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Jim?
I am definitely a Scheme 1 fan. I like just about everything about it. I do echo Cinda's comment about the bathrooms. I was thinking the same thing. I have never been in this building, but it seems like an awful far walk for the people down at the south end. But I like them right outside the cafeteria. So if it's all open underneath and that's something that can be looked into, that would be really my only criticism of that. Everything else looks really, really nice.
Okay, thank you. And just a quick thing, Kevin came up with that irregularly shaped CONC concession area. That was going to be a storage room there, and then he, threw out the idea of putting a mini concession area there for, potato chips, pretzels, maybe drinks, nothing elaborate, maybe a microwave, maybe a, hot chocolate or whatever. Huh? I heard you. Walter.
I certainly don't want to go against the grain here, but I like Scheme 1 for a number of reasons myself. The fact that it's all on one floor, the fact that comparatively it's going to be considerably cheaper. I kind of like how the gym multi-purpose room is kind of laid out. Elijah, you kind of covered it a little bit, but when you're talking about the big picture item of parking, it would seem to me you're not showing any handicapped up by the gym itself, but we probably need 4, 5, 6 for grandma and grandpas that are going to watch the kids.
Don't be too ambitious about getting too much paving in here.
Okay. Yes, to go see the kiddies play. So,
And we talked about that, Walter, there's room there possibly, and we're also, an idea is using impervious pavement, which
my
we'll
point,
discuss it.
but my point was on your stormwater, on the other scheme, you showed 40 cars, you're showing 34 on Scheme 1. Well, you put a half a dozen handicapped over there, now you're at the same number of spaces.
And I'm going to back off you a little bit. Okay, we have 2 full blocks of on-street parking here. So, and that's got to be 20 cars of on-street parking without even thinking about it. So I want to be real careful about dedicating space, site space and cost to park cars on our site when the streets are available, especially in the evening.
That's un-American.
Hmm?
That's un-American.
It's very American. It's very walkable.
And we're going to provide many more parking spaces with this scheme than are there now. So it's the immediate community should be happy.
My point though is that I think you need some down by that handicap spaces in that gym area.
We've talked about that.
And you can make some of the spaces on the street handicapped if you wanted to do that.
I would be very happy to do that if the borough will allow that.
Oh, okay. I'm trying not to pave the world. Okay, which is.
And Tom, if we had to, we could shorten up the 34 thing by the number of handicap we get over there, maybe, or something.
Actually, I was thinking you could probably push the 34 to 38 or 40, make the driveway a little smaller, because we're only pulling one truck in at a time.
But I agree with Walter. It would be nice to have handicap parking over there.
Why can't you put parking in the asphalt area? Some of it. Like
You mean in the street?
In the back?
in the back, yeah. Where all that
For the
is.
off hours?
No.
You wouldn't want to do it during the day because of
No.
the playground.
No, but in the off hours at night.
It's not, right now, it's not built for that.
There's really no
Such a big
driveway into it and
space.
stuff. but
Yeah, the
it's
fire truck
something.
can't, the fire truck
I
can't
was
go
gonna say,
through the
fire truck
yard.
got stuck in there. We had to get the fire truck out that morning.
Okay,
I remember
Walter,
that.
You're at option one?
Yeah, I'm option one.
All right, I'm at option one too. Anything else you need from us, Eli, Mike, Jared, any?
No, when we met Mr. Kerr, as you know, the administration also picked
Yeah.
option one, so
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
We saved that for last. I guess we
Yeah.
could have said that first, made it a lot easier, huh? But
I'd like to at some point discuss the music rooms, and how to handle those. Not tonight. I'm supposed to be ready to do that.
I already am ready.
Scheduled for 6:30.
Yeah,
Scott and I already came up with
And we have
what the specs, we can look at it,
I
yes.
agree, totally the most important.
Anything else, Eli, that you need from us? or-
I've got, Scott gave me some ideas and some
I
stuff.
don't believe so.
Here's your hat, but you're.
I really appreciate all the feedback and we'll take this to the next step.
Thank you.
With the feedback that we have here. Again, this isn't even our final schematic presentation. We have this will allow us to put together our final schematic submission with one option here in another week or two.
After you meet with the teachers.
Yeah, that's
Right,
tomorrow,
once we have
yeah.
a program,
Make sure they
And then-
pick scheme one.
Or whatever day you're meeting
We'll
is
give you
next
the
month.
option, schemes. I think we're just telling them this is the space, how do we fill it?
Final.
yeah, we'll just be looking at the program.
To talk them into scheme two.
How do we fill
No
the
talk with
spaces?
scheme
More
two
like,
anymore. We've
yeah.
got
Yeah,
the
we're done
option.
with scheme two.
We're done with scheme two.
just asking them how to fill
Thanks,
scheme
and
one.
you took a big risk wearing a white shirt tonight. You didn't get any, there's no blood stains.
Terry, that's
Thank
April
you.
2.
April 2nd, we'll have the committee after.
So we'll log back on for audit and finance is a different link.
Yep, close this meeting and then we'll start the next one.
Then we'll,
May
Terry,
2nd?
Terry,
May 2nd, correct.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can we,
looks like we might have to delay the forest man discussion till
Yes, that's what I was
Another
going to suggest, that we do that next month.
sounds good.
Appreciate everybody online. We'll close this meeting up and we'll start the audit and finance.